Are we all happy? The U.S. men's national team 23-man roster announced here on a Wednesday for games that will occur, what is that, in 8 days? 8 days from the announcement of the roster. Sorry, that was my reach. We're ready to go. These players, wherever they're playing, will get some games in the weekend, be ready for the national team and the Nations League semifinals March 21st at Jerry's World against Jamaica. If they win that, they play for the final against Mexico or Panama. If they lose that, they play a third-place game. Positive energy, we're talking about the final. And hopefully USA-Mexico, which could be just 10 days away. Doesn't it feel like we've been waiting for a proper USA game for a while? It certainly does to me. I'm sure it does to you. January obviously doesn't count. October and what happened there, I mean, we got to almost, it's been a minute. So let's get going. But I think do we all agree on the roster announcement? Well, we'll get into all the details here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. We'll have a new one out talking about this subject. All the incredible happenings in the Champions League, CONCACAF Champions. What else were we going to talk about? Oh, the women's Gold Cup triumph. I know that's a few days ago, but we'll get into that. And like and subscribe us here. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. So I think we're happy, right? I know we're not all happy. I think most people, because I have my nose to the grindstone, are happy about what Greg Berhalter was able to do. 23-man roster. Not many question marks in my estimation. Maybe there were more in yours. Maybe who was going to be the second and third goalkeeper. Maybe the third goalkeeper. I think we thought we knew who the midfielders were going to be. All 6 midfielders that I predicted were in. Plus you get Tyler Adams. And Tyler Adams certainly a feel-good story. And while I think we all put our guard up and say, why is he in there? Hasn't played for the national team since the World Cup. There is enough there that you can just nod your head because it's Tyler Adams. You know, that guy dies on his shield all the time for us. Tyler Adams in there is good news for us. I want to talk a little bit more about that, but there's the roster. I think the question marks for a goalkeeper, the midfielders seemed okay. Will we bring 3 forwards? I think we'd have been shocked if Josh Sargent and or Brandon Vasquez and or Haji Wright wasn't in there. I think we were going to get 3 number 9s, and happy to see Josh Sargent. We'll talk about that as well. And the defenders, who would be the extra fullback? Christopher Lund gets it. I would have had a preference for Dewan Jones. I don't think either would have played. I think Dewan Jones because of some flexibility at either fullback. So that is that. The center back situation, I didn't think at any point Miles Robinson was in peril of missing this roster. If you thought that was the case, I don't think you're paying close enough attention. And I don't want to hear about, because the only reason there is an argument here is because he plays in Major League Soccer. And you could tell me otherwise. And I had some back and forth with folks on social media. And I got to tell you, it's really stunning because people, and I know it's not everyone, but they play by the lowest common denominator. Austin Trusty plays in the Premier League, therefore he should be in there in front of Miles Robinson. It doesn't work that way. Thank goodness it doesn't work that way. There's much more to it. It can't be so black and white. Come on. There is no MLS quotas. Miles Robinson deserves to be here because of what he did in the past and on his own merit. He's coming off the big injury, the Achilles injury that could derail a career. Didn't have a great season. I get it. Look, if Greg Berhalter was picking guys on not having great seasons, I mean, there's a lot of guys that we're probably going to start that are in there. Gio Reyna's not having a great year. He definitely has to be in here. Tyler Adams hasn't seen any of action. And I'm not comparing Miles Robinson there, but he's not far. He is a high-level prospect. He's a better prospect than Mark McKenzie. He's certainly a better prospect than Austin Trusty. He was going to go to Europe. He decided to come to MLS. So if you're saying that he's not good enough to play in Europe, we have the data to say you're incorrect. He is. Is this an issue for MLS? I don't want to dwell on this, but I find it difficult to stick up for him because not only should he be on this roster, he might start a game. Don't throw and don't have a fit because I say that. Gabriel Heinze, I'm dedicating too much time to Miles Robinson. I want to make this very positive because I love the roster and I think we're going to do well. Gabriel Heinze, a legendary Argentine football player, really identified Miles Robinson when he was coach of Atlanta United. Said he was this elite player. Maybe he hasn't hit that spot, but I feel more comfortable with him. And the conversation about Austin Trusty, I watch a lot of the Sheffield United games. I know he's playing the Premier League game, but that's a unique circumstance. That is a sieve of a team. It's really unhealthy. Still, I don't think it's a fact that he played in the Premier League. I just don't believe, and I think Greg Berhalter would agree, and I think a lot of people agree with me that Miles Robinson is the better choice here. And I think Trusty could have made it, but ahead of Mark McKenzie. By the way, I would have really kicked the tires on John Brooks. I would have liked to see Ream, Richards, Miles Robinson, John Brooks. Okay, let's move on. So I think in the back line, Joe Scally seems like the nod for right back, but maybe Tim Weah, we talked about that with Brian Sciaretta last week. Maybe he could be an option at right back in that first game because Serginho Dest is suspended. It should be Ream and Richards and Anthony Robinson, the back line. Tyler Adams, I can't see him starting. I'm happy for this because I think you want to embed him to the team with these teammates. He's playing games now. He played for Bournemouth. I think he'll play again this weekend. Get him in there so he can be ready for the summertime. Tyler Adams has that equity with this club. That's simple. And I think we all agree. We all love Tyler Adams, right? The only question is what it means to the starting 11. I would tend to think Reyna still starts with... That's going to be maybe a little more interesting than the roster selection. I think I had Reyna, Weston, and I would lean into Cardoso, but I'd like to keep Musa in there. But eventually, because of his selection, you think probably Tyler Adams is going to get there. But I like all the midfielders. Malik Tillman, by the way, a midfielder, but he's been classified as a forward. Could compete with Gio Reyna. But the fact that he's not as a midfielder, and Gio is... says that if they're going to play with that 10, it's going to be Gio and not Malik. Because when we've seen those kind of designations with players, Greg kind of sticks to it. If he puts a guy as a forward, they're going to be a forward. If he puts a guy with a midfielder, so and so. So midfield, very strong. Very, very strong. I want to say something back about the center backs too. And no matter who I pull for to make it, I don't pull for anyone. I want to see the best team. Our center back situation is not great. We also talked about that with Brian Sciaretta on the last Soccer OG. Check it out here on my YouTube. It's not great because some of the players that are there, Chris Richards is an elite prospect, but other guys, Cameron Carter-Vickers, not at that level, good. Then you have a couple other guys in that area. Trusty and McKenzie and Miles Robinson don't classify as young position. That next group between 18 and 22, there really isn't many players. Jalen Neal, but some issues there. Can't get on the field. It's bleak. So we got to keep in mind that it's not a strength. And for a team that prides itself on being hard to score against, like they did in the World Cup, goalkeeper and center back issues, that worries me more than a little bit. To the attacking side. And Pulisic will start, as an emergency maybe at right back, but I think he starts up there, and it will be Balogun. Balogun's playing much better. Greg Berhalter addressed it, said he saw him against PSG, and he certainly liked what he was able to do. Anything you hear or see would be shocking if Balogun doesn't start. Josh Sargent made this team. Does he get playing time? Possibly because of the fact he is pretty versatile. The fact that he might play as at 11 or what have you in a position, a guy that you can bring in for a variety of offensive and defensive purposes. We talked about that also last week, and I was thinking because of the situation with Norwich, they're in a big relegation fight. They probably don't want to lose Josh Sargent and have a serious conversation with Greg Berhalter about saving him for the summer. The fact that Josh Sargent here means that Greg Berhalter probably listened to that claim and said, I don't care. He's bringing it, and I'm glad for Josh because he needs to get back on this national team sooner than later. You cannot defer this. You got to get in there because he's a very important player playing very well. You can't kick the can on this if you're Josh Sargent. As much as it kind of made sense, I'm glad he's here. No Brandon Vasquez, nor Jordan Pefok, which Greg Berhalter mentioned in the press conference when he was left out in the question that was presented about the forwards, no Haji Wright. All very deserving. Number 9 is a very strong position. That's good news because that wasn't always the case in recent years or in years past. But there's depth there. We'll see where that goes. The bigger issue is wingers. When you think, Kevin Paredes, Taylor Booth, who was a long shot and had to deal with his injuries, Leonard Maloney, Austin Trusty, those are the guys that I think were left off that have the biggest gripe. But all in all, I don't think anyone has a big gripe. Injury issues made it a little bit easier for Greg Berhalter, but this is a team that he based on potential, based on what they may have done in the past. I think it was very fair. I think it was very fair how he put this squad together. People are going to be upset because they're not on it, but this was well thought out. I think he's got good cover there under the circumstances. In a perfect world, Serginho Dest wouldn't be suspended, but he is. And that's the thing where you have to make a little bit of an adjustment. Maybe the elephant in the room is of all these players that we're bringing in, there are a handful that aren't playing important minutes. It's a short list. Matt Turner, going to be the number 1 goal. That is concerning. Gio Reyna, would it put his position in peril? Greg Berhalter was asked about Gio early in the week and kind of suggested that he's not going to be a 90-minute player. And if he's not a 90-minute player, that could take you out of the equation altogether because you got to be selective with your substitutions and say, am I going to play Gio 30 minutes? That's a concern. They're not playing a fair bit. That's a couple big ones. Ricardo Pepi won't be featured. He's a guy who hasn't played a whole lot, but certainly starting to pick up a level of that on the back end. There's those concerns. Those are 2 big ones right off the jump. But Tyler Adams hasn't played a lot. Will he play? Yunus Musa hasn't really played a lot. And you lean into ones I think you did. Now that I verbally lay it out, I'm not as worried that when I started. But there is, I think, more so with Matt and Gio. Those are the 2 big ones. But all in all, a squad that should win the Nations League for a 3rd straight time. Remember that. And that's Greg Berhalter pointed out too. He goes, it's about winning the Nations League. This is a big competition. We're thinking about Copa America, but this is a big competition. So enjoy it. Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Listen and watch everything. I dressed really nice for you. I actually came from an event, but I had to record this later on for all of you guys. And for me too, because it's a great forum to do that. Like and subscribe us here. We'll be back. Busy March continues, and I will be here with you along for the ride.